Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, the Korean government has stepped in to demand public organisations bring their ballooning debts under control, holding organisation heads responsible if they fail to make drastic reforms. The leaders of Korea and Singapore agree to better cooperate in the areas of innovation, construction and research and development. They also discuss ways to jointly bid for infrastructure projects in the ASEAN region. Plus, the United States and Britain temporarily suspend non-lethal aid to Syria's opposition after radical Islamists seize control of rebel bases near Syria's border with Turkey. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Thursday, December 12th. I'm Choi Yu-sun in Seoul. We begin with a reality check for the nation's under-fire public sector. The government has rolled out comprehensive measures aimed at ensuring financial responsibility and fixing the sloppy management practices that have seen state agencies run up huge debts. Our Hwang Ji-ae reports.
The Korean government is geared up to fight the mounting debt that public organizations face. Unveiling a set of measures on Wednesday designed to bring the debt under control, it said 41 heavily indebted public organizations will have to reduce their debt levels to 200% of their equity by 2017 from the current average of 220%. The government will initially focus on 12 state agencies, including the Korea Electric Power Corporation, the Korea Land and Housing Corporation, and a public foundation that doles out scholarships and tuition-linked loans.
Those under intensive monitoring will have to release their debt-related information by the third quarter of next year, and the heads will face punitive measures if they fail to improve their debt-equity ratio.
The 12 state agencies saw their combined debt expand by more than 220 trillion won, or roughly $210 billion over the previous 5 years to more than $390 billion last year, making up over 80% of the debt owed by all public organizations in the nation. The debt owed by the nation's 295 public organizations stood at around $470 billion at the end of last year, nearly double from 2007 and almost $45 billion more than the government debt. The public organizations have been under fierce criticism for offering high salaries and other benefits to their employees despite their poor finances. Underscoring the government's determination to improve finances of state-run agencies, it also decided to release a detailed report on their financial health in October every year. Hwang Ji-ae, Arirang News.
Bipartisan bickering kept the National Assembly from completing its work during the 100-day regular session that came to a close earlier this week. But lawmakers were back for provisional sessions on Wednesday, hoping to hammer out the details for next year's budget and reforming the nation's intelligence agency. And Park Ji-won has more.
The state budget bills topped the agenda as lawmakers at the National Assembly began a provisional session this Wednesday. The much-delayed 2014 budget, which should have been resolved in early December, was reviewed for a second day following a budget committee meeting on Tuesday that was cut short. However, both camps started where they left off on Wednesday, locking horns once again over details of the plan. The ruling Saenuri Party wants the budget to support the Park Geun-hye administration's key national goals, while the main opposition Democratic Party is calling for more cautious spending. While the provisional session will continue until January 3rd next year, the bickering is expected to continue as well. The remaining bills up for vote, such as Investment Promotion Acts, bills on the price ceiling for rent, and free school meals, highlight the divisions between the two main parties. Meanwhile, the Special Parliamentary Committee set up to reform the nation's spy agency, which did not meet on Tuesday following controversial remarks by two Democratic Party lawmakers, is scheduled to meet on Thursday morning. The National Intelligence Service will provide a report to the committee detailing its own ideas for reforming the agency. The special committee also plans to hold public hearings next week to gather public opinions on ways to ensure the political neutrality of the spy agency. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye held her last bilateral summit of the year with visiting Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, where the two discussed ways to further boost economic cooperation. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju has the details.
The bilateral summit between President Park Geun-hye and Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong mainly focused on laying the path to further economic cooperation between the two countries. The two leaders in their summit talks on Wednesday saw eye to eye on the need for Korea and Singapore to strengthen cooperation to develop new areas of growth.
이제는 또 창조와 혁신을 바탕으로 해서 새로운 도약을 해야 되는 그런 공통의 과제에 직면해 있다고 생각이 됩니다.
Now with new expectations and new domestic social problems, differently but with some similarities, and I think that we can learn from each other's experiences.
The two leaders promised to work together in entering third markets, especially ASEAN member countries, combining Korea's competitiveness in the construction, IT, and manufacturing sectors, and Singapore's strength in finance and distribution. Another important field of cooperation is in research and development. The two sides decided to open the first meeting of a joint science and technology committee set up back in 1997 and also signed a biomedical MOU to expand their technological cooperation to the nano-robot industry. The summit talks with Lee were President Park's last of 2013. It's been a busy year on the diplomatic stage for the president. Since her inauguration in February, she's held a total of 30 bilateral summits with world leaders and made 5 overseas trips to the U.S., China, Russia, Southeast Asia, and Europe. She was successful in securing support for her North Korea policy from other countries, including permanent member nations of the UN Security Council. Through her sales diplomacy, Korea saw progress in FTA talks with many nations, including Indonesia, Vietnam, and Canada, and won support for Korean companies. However, there remain challenges for President Park when it comes to China and Japan. China's unilateral announcement of a new air defense zone has raised tensions in the region, and the Korean government still has unresolved matters with Tokyo, such as the Japanese government's push to exercise its collective self-defense and other historical issues. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
While speculation runs rife about the latest purge of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's uncle, there are big questions about how Chang Song-taek's dismissal will affect Pyongyang's traditionally close ties with Beijing. Our Hwang Sung-hee explains.
One of the crimes that the now ousted uncle of North Korean ruler Chang Song-taek is accused of is selling off the nation's precious resources at cheap prices. Chang, who was known as one of North Korea's major economic policymakers, exercised a lot of control and influence over firms, trade, and investment with China.
Chang Song-taek was a key player in dealing with Beijing, and experts here say that Chang's dismissal will inevitably deal a huge blow to North Korea-China relations.
Chang was known to be in charge of a joint economic zone with Beijing near the Chinese city of Dandong, with plans to bring in North Koreans to work in Chinese factories. However, progress has been slow, and just before Chang first went missing, Pyongyang announced a new separate economic zone at Sinuiju without consulting Beijing. And the latest accusations surrounding Chang mean that Kim Jong-un and others may seek to renegotiate with China based on a belief that the previous terms of trade were not in North Korea's favor. Such a move may cut off future business deals with Beijing, Pyongyang's closest ally and biggest benefactor.
But if they're always going to renege upon the conditions of the contracts, then no one is going to enter into contracts with them because they know they can walk out of it at some point in the future.
But as frustrated as China may be with its neighbor, no significant change in bilateral ties appears imminent.
They will send signals from time to time. They will manage the relationship. But as far as placing some kind of economic embargo or cutting off energy supplies, for example, I don't see that unless North Korea would take some hostile actions against China.
And that, experts say, is a highly unlikely scenario. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
North Korea's instability in domestic politics, however, isn't having an effect on inter-Korean projects, at least for now. The construction of an electronic verification system at the joint Kaesang Industrial Complex, which aims to ease the entry process for South Korean workers there, got underway Wednesday, and 11 North Korean and 3 South Korean engineers began working together on the project. The system is expected to be up and running by the end of the year. South Korean workers are currently required to notify the North of the time they plan to enter and leave the park one day before. But the electronic system will enable authorized personnel to cross the border at any time of the day. With a timeline for the transition of wartime operational control from the U.S. to South Korea still uncertain, the two sides will hold the first director-level working group talks in Seoul starting Thursday. The working group was formed after a security consultative meeting in October. It aims to assess the readiness of the South Korean military for the upcon transfer and set an appropriate transition timeline. The transfer was originally planned for December of 2015, but Seoul had asked for a delay amid increasing North Korean nuclear and missile threats. Seoul projects the assessment to be completed in the first half of next year and expects a final timeline to be drawn up during next October's Security Consultative meeting in Washington. The Korean government has strongly urged Japan to remove an internet video clip which promotes Korea's Dokdo Islets as Japanese territory. The video was posted on a number of Japanese government websites on Wednesday. The roughly 1.5-minute clip comes in 9 languages, including Korean, and claims that Japan has the ownership of the Dokdo Islets, called Takeshima in Japan. Korea's foreign ministry protested to the Japanese embassy in Seoul on Wednesday and asked for the video to be removed immediately. The recent posting comes despite Korea's protest last month when Japan posted an English version of the video clip on various websites.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiations.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a.
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. Now to the latest on the ongoing strike at Korea's state-run railway operator. While hundreds more union workers taking part in the protests were removed from their positions on Wednesday, the government called on protesters to get back to work before it's too late. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Only a handful of the railway operators' train services were running normally, with freight trains seeing the biggest decline. Just 36% of them were in operation on Wednesday. The nation's transport minister pinpointed the nation's rail operator as an example of lax management, saying the plan to set up a subsidiary for new high-speed train operations is aimed at tackling that very problem, and not at privatization.
This strike stands against government policy. It is not justified, nor does it have a practical interest. People need to get back to work before it's too late.
Experts say that if the strike extends for a long period of time, there could be a major supply shortages at industrial sites in the country, as most of the heavy industries rely on trains to transport supplies. Korail has 24,000 employees, but about 30% are currently on strike. About 500 people have returned to work since the walkout began, but only a handful are engineers. The union workers are protesting what they believe is a first step by the government towards privatization of the state-run railway operator. Korail has already removed about 6,800 workers who have gone on strike from their positions. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Hyundai Motor recently unveiled its most anticipated premium sedan, the all-new Genesis. Korea's largest automaker has high hopes to establish itself in the luxury auto market, but does the new Genesis have what it takes to make that goal a reality? Our Kim Young-gil reports.
After more than 5 years of involvement in the premium car market, Hyundai Motor has high hopes for its latest Genesis. Hyundai Motor recently unveiled its most anticipated premium sedan, the all-new Genesis. Hyundai hopes the Genesis will help it compete with world-renowned luxurious brands like Mercedes-Benz, Audi, and BMW. Hyundai plans to sell around 62,000 new Genesis worldwide, including in Korea next year. The Genesis will come with a price tag of between $45,000 and $65,000 in Korea. Hyundai has yet to announce the international price tag. The automaker aims to increase U.S. sales by 10% next year from this year's target of 734,000 units of all Hyundai brand cars. Hyundai also has high expectations for the European market.
We expect to receive good reviews from European customers as the new Genesis offers improved driving, handling, and various high-tech features.
The Genesis is Hyundai's first all-wheel drive sedan, and the model's use of ultra-high-strength steel makes the vehicle sturdier and lighter, giving it a fuel economy of 9.4 kilometers per liter for a 3.3-liter model. It's equipped with a carbon dioxide ventilation system to prevent driver drowsiness and high-end safety features. Hyundai hopes the Genesis will be the stepping stone that takes and solidifies the company's place in the premium auto section. But experts say one premium model may not be enough.
Hyundai needs to keep on developing more than one type of premium model to achieve its goal as a premium automaker. Hyundai also needs to pack new cars with upscale features and must establish Hyundai's own unique design.
Hyundai hopes the all-new Genesis will set a new standard for the company in the premium sedan industry and shift it from a value-for-money car maker to a premium car contender. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Last week, kimjang, the Korean tradition of making and sharing kimchi, made the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List. Now the focus is on adding haenyeo, the iconic women divers of Jeju Island, to the list. Our Kim Yeon-ji has this report.
The haenyeo of Korea's southern island of Jeju are a group of women divers who spend their lives combing through the seabed for marine products like shellfish, abalones, and seaweed. The divers have practiced sustainable fishing for hundreds of years by using simple tools. They do not use oxygen equipment, but rather hold their breath for 2 to 3 minutes while diving to depths of 10 to 20 meters. It's a female-dominated profession that developed as a way to support family. And the divers have an exceptional knowledge of the sea, which has been passed on to younger divers for generations. However, the culture is under threat. In 1962, there were more than 26,000 haenyeo in Jeju, but the number dropped to below 4,600 in late 2012. Fewer younger women are joining the profession, and most of the remaining haenyeo divers are in their 70s. Lawmaker Kim Jong-un held a public hearing Wednesday as part of efforts to have haenyeo listed as a UNESCO cultural heritage.
The haenyeo have formed a unique female-led community culture in Jeju. If haenyeo is listed as a UNESCO heritage, the government can provide financial support and quickly come up with the measures to preserve this culture.
54-year-old diver Hong Kyung-ja says protecting haenyeo means preserving Jeju's marine ecology.
We haenyeo dive into the sea under the principle of working and living in harmony with Mother Nature. We never pick small sea snails or abalones. We wait until they grow. We wait until the marine environment is fully developed.
Experts at the hearing stressed that it is crucial to appeal to UNESCO how this important heritage may die out soon if systematic efforts to preserve it aren't taken.
They also said Korea should be able to communicate to the world how Haenyeo has existed for ages and how it will continue to be an important part of Korean culture, which was something that helped Kim Jong make it on the UNESCO Intangible Heritage List last week. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
The United States and Britain have suspended all non-lethal assistance into northern Syria, but will continue supplying humanitarian aid. A U.S. embassy spokesperson in the Turkish capital, Ankara, says the decision was made after Islamic rebels seized critical infrastructure belonging to the opposition's Supreme Military Council. Fighters from the Islamic Front, a union of 6 major rebel groups, took control of the Free Syrian Army bases at the Bab al-Hawa crossing on Syria's northwestern border with Turkey last Friday. The non-lethal aid includes medical supplies, communication equipment, and vehicles. U.S. and European countries have been reluctant to provide weapons and ammunition to rebel groups in Syria, as they might end up in the hands of jihadists affiliated to al-Qaeda.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with speed skating. Now, with the Sochi Winter Games right around the corner, the South Korean speed skating team roster was revealed on Wednesday, with 8 men and 7 female speed skaters for a total of 15 being added onto the roster. Lee Sang-hwa leads the pack of Koreans hoping to win the Olympic gold. While she'll be competing in the women's 500-meter and the 1,000-meter event, Mo Tae-bwan will be competing in the men's side, with Lee Seung-hoon competing in the men's 5,000 and 10,000-meter events. Meanwhile, 35-year-old Lee Kyu-hyuk, who debuted back in 1994, is set to compete in his 6th Winter Games as he hopes to win his first Olympic medal. And now moving on to our Wednesday night's KBL action, we had a couple of games take place, starting off with the Changwon LG Sakers take on the Goyang Orions. Now, first quarter of the game, Chris Massey leading the way for LG as he puts up 10 points in the quarter as LG takes a 23-16 lead after the first quarter. Second quarter, the Orions are able to cut the deficit as LG goes into the halftime with a slim 36-32 lead. Third quarter of the game, LG starts running away with the game as they take a 9-point lead going into the fourth, but a huge comeback from the Orions tied this up at the end of regulation. But thanks to Kim Shi-tae's clutch performance, LG takes this game 80-75 as the Sakers are now in first place. And up next, KT Sonic Boom taking on Dongbu Promi. First quarter, KT's Cho Sang-min and Anthony Richardson combining for 24 points in the quarter as KT takes a huge 30-17 first quarter lead before heading into halftime with a monster 53-27 lead. Second half, Dongbu's defense improves as Lee Seung-jun tries to get the team back in the game, but the first half deficit is too big as KT hangs on to take this game 84-70. And now finishing things off with Wednesday's V-League action, Korean Expressway, led by Nicole Fawcett's 40 attack points, beat GS Caltech's 3-1 over on the women's side. Meanwhile, let's take a look at Uricard taking on LIG over on the men's side. Now, first set led by Sean Rooney. Uricard takes the first set 25-18 before LIG levels it up in the second set with a 25-21 set win. Despite Thomas Edgar's game-high 24 attack points, Uricard does a great job spreading it around as 4 different players scored double digits, including Sean Rooney with 19 points. Uricard will cruise through in the next 2 sets 25-17, 25-18 as they take this match 3-1. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, we will be dealing with another round of winter weather today. Morning low has dropped to -4 in the capital, but it feels like -9, so be sure to bundle up tight. And afternoon highs should be similar to a tad warmer than yesterday. And it looks like another band of snow and sleet is in store in the inland regions before noon, and it should linger till the later afternoon with the accumulation less than yesterday. And colder air will be ushering to the nation for the rest of the week. And here are the readings. The morning lows are all starting out in the minus side, and afternoon highs in Seoul and Busan should peak to 2 and 9 respectively. And for other regions, it looks like Jeju will reach to 11 in the afternoon, and Mount Kumgang should top out at -10. Now that's all I have for you at this hour. Have a wonderful day, and back to Yusan in the studio.
Thanks so much for that, Chian. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Thank you for being with us.